to me and Jordan's favorite ex-head coach at Notre Dame, Brian Kelly. So obviously they came up a little short against FSU, 45-24. I think at one point they were outscored 31-0 in a row. So not a great outing for LSU. That we were all going back and forth for who's going to win this, and it wasn't even that close. And honestly, I think it all comes down to coaching a bit. One, they're missing their starting quarterback, running back, and Logan Diggs, but the way they were using some of their really star defensive players was puzzling as they weren't really effective in the game. They had a lot of this sloppiness. So maybe it's just the first game of the year and they changed it around. But are we buying or selling LSU's future with Brian Kelly as the head coach? Start with you, Jordan.
Oh, I'm selling. And it's not because I despise Brian Kelly for what he did. It's more because I don't know how LSU thought Brian Kelly was going to be any different than what he was at Notre Dame. And what we're looking at right now, you look at Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman's bringing in players. They got Sam Hartman. If Brian Kelly was there, I don't think Sam Hartman would have been there.
Yeah.
So I don't think Brian Kelly is the head coach LSU needed. He's not really a people person. I feel like he doesn't know how to recruit. He doesn't know how to get someone in. And I think that's going to be the downfall. LSU has the people, has the team, but they just, I mean, Jaden Daniels honestly looked kind of lost. I don't know what it was. The whole team looked weird. LSU had all the ability going into halftime to win this game. And it just, whatever they said, whatever Brian Kelly said in the locker room, I don't know. And I think Brian Kelly, LSU has already shown they fire coaches fast. So he could win a national championship next year and then be gone the year after. So I think he's got, if he doesn't get out of this slump, honestly, at least beat Alabama this year, I think he's going to maybe 2 or 3 more years.
What's puzzling me about him, everybody talks about the great year he had first year, but in 3 of those 4 games last year, they were beat by double digits, and now they got beat by double digits again. And that's the thing, like, I think what Brian Kelly brings to our program is stability. They had a lot of instability with Ed Orgeron, and so they needed someone that could bring in a good culture, bring some stability. He's done that, and he could because he could probably get you 8 to 10 wins a year. But to your point, I don't think he likes to recruit enough to really be a successful LSU. But just from an outsider's perspective, not being as close to Brian Kelly, what do you say?
Yeah, I don't know as deeply about his history as you guys do, obviously. But there's LSU is one of those programs that they're one of the fastest ones that you could, rebuild, but they're also one of the ones, as Jordan said, to let you go the fastest. If he can't, the most important thing for a team like LSU, for a team like Bama, for a team like Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, that you need to be able to get over that last hurdle. And Brian Kelly in Notre Dame wasn't able to do that in the playoff era. And I don't know why they thought he'd be able to do that at LSU. Maybe the quality of player that, he could theoretically bring in at LSU is, better than that Notre Dame location, whatever it is. But if he's unable to stay with a Bama or a Georgia or whatever, they're going to ship him out. I don't want to say I'm selling his future, but he needs to show that, all right, this was just a little bit of a blip, first game woes, and move on and start dominating. Because if they fall to like a 7-5 or even like an 8-4, LSU, that's not good. They have those ridiculously high standards. One of my teams, like a Rutgers, they go 7-5. Hell, they go 6-6. That's a great year.
If they
That's
get
not
2
a great
wins,
year for
if they
LSU.
get 2 wins,
That's not a great year for LSU. ECU, we want to get back to 6-6, 7-5. That's a great year for ECU. That's not the case for LSU. It isn't. So he needs to be able to turn this around, and I think he needs to turn around quickly.
No, I agree. I just don't. I don't know. Like, it's the first game, so I'm interested in the next couple games. Another good opponent, and see how his team does. I'm kind of holding right now. I'm not buying or selling. I just kind of want to see what the next few weeks holds and see if he loses his team or not. He's usually pretty good about recovering from a big loss like this. He did it in Notre Dame, so I'll give him a benefit of a doubt for that. But he has a tough road ahead. He has to beat Alabama. I just don't think that's going to happen. So we'll see what the rest of the season holds. And there was obviously another team in that game, Florida State. Jordan Travis looked really good, 342 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Keon Coleman, the wide receiver transfer from Michigan State, 9 receptions, 122 yards, and 3 touchdowns. They had other talented wide receivers and tight ends out there. They look like one of the best all-around teams in the country in week 1 here. Do we buy or selling them as a true title contender? What do you say, Jess?
I'm buying them as a true playoff contender, but title contender, it just feels weird to say. Like we all said it before the season, Georgia. I don't know if I truly feel that they are at a Georgia level, but I also don't think really anybody is at a Georgia level from a top to bottom roster, especially if Georgia can, find some stability throughout the year. They have faith in their quarterback, if they get that figured out, it just feels like they're inevitably going to get that third in a row. But I think Florida State has, that was arguably their toughest game of the year, especially with how bad Clemson looked. They don't really have anything after this that's like, truly daunting. They get Duke, but they get them at home. They're at Clemson, but Clemson looks like they're a mess, and they're getting them 3 weeks from now on September 23rd. So, Clemson probably isn't going to have like that much time to truly figure their stuff out. So I could easily see Florida State going undefeated now and, cruising to a playoff spot, and then it's just a matter of, do you really think they can contend with Georgia? I don't know. I think they're going to be in that. I think they're in that tier below a Georgia and a Michigan right now, but who knows? They've clearly got a ton of talent. I think they've already all but locked up a playoff spot.
All right. Jordan, what do you say?
I don't think they're, like Just said, Georgia is that team. I definitely think they are going to be in the championship game this year. I think Jordan Travis is a better quarterback than anyone in the top 5 quarterbacks, honestly, right now. I don't know if JJ McCarthy is that good. So if Florida State gets Michigan, I think Florida State has a better offense than Michigan does. Right now, they just looked explosive. Jordan Travis had 4 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown in this game. They had 2 receivers go for over 100 receiving yards. So there's just so much that Florida State has offensively, and it really showed. LSU is supposed to have one of the, best corners, secondaries. It's DBU, but I mean, Florida State just destroyed that. So I just think Florida State offensively right now, their defense looked good in the second half. The first half, it was rough. No preseason. It's not an excuse, but they picked it up the second half. I think Florida State has an electric offense, can put up numbers, has really good receivers, has a quarterback that's dynamic, that can do a lot. And it looks, in my eyes, Florida State is back to what we've seen when they won the national championship last couple of years ago. It's just the other teams like Georgia is just a lot bigger than any other team. So Florida State's a little smaller in areas, but I think Florida State's going to be in that national championship game against Georgia.
All right.
If they're not 4-1, 1-4, and then Florida State's 4-1 or whatever's going on here.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see whatever records are. I mean, there's a lot of people predicting to be undefeated, which what that means. They're probably not going to be undefeated by the time the end of the year. So they're going to get, they're going to overlook someone, and it's going to cause them. I think he could be like a Florida who has talent and just hasn't put it together yet. So maybe
it's the last game of the season. So
yeah, you never know. All right, let's combine this one here. Buy or sell Alabama and Ohio State's quarterback situation. So obviously going into the season, these 2 quarterback situations were a part of one of the 2 best teams in the country. Alabama, they won 56-7 over Middle Tennessee. Jalen Monroe had 13 for 18 for 194 yards, 3 touchdowns, 7 carries, 48 yards, and never 2 touchdowns. Looked pretty good. I still this Middle Tennessee. So how much can you glean from his performance here? On the other side, you have Ohio State. They beat Indiana 23-3. This is a very ugly game. Kyle McCord was 20 for 33 for 239 and an interception. Did not look good. Looked really stiff this whole game and really looked rattled by Indiana. And they were getting some pressure on him as well, which, if Indiana's front was pretty good, but I mean, it's not world beating like they're going to play in the upcoming weeks. So are you buying or selling in these two different situations? So start with you, Jordan.
So I'm selling Ohio State's quarterback situation. I just think, like you said, Kyle McCord doesn't look like the guy, doesn't look like a quarterback we've seen the last couple of years at Ohio State. And the offensive line's really not going to help him. And also, but it's, the first game of the season, no preseason game. You played at Indiana, Big Ten school that, you play. They're still a tough team, no matter what people say. Indiana is going to still play as hard as they can, no matter what. I'm thinking right now, if I had I don't know. I think I'm going to buy Alabama's quarterback situation right now, just because he has mobility.
Yeah.
He can get out of the pocket. He's not horrible passing wise, but he's consistent enough.
He reminds me of early Jalen Hurts, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like Jalen Hurts, was the first couple of years at Alabama. So
consistent enough to put up numbers. So I'm going to buy Alabama's quarterback situation. I honestly think it was the best choice for this first game. The test is this weekend. They play Texas, a lot better team. So next weekend it might be a sell, or but for now I'm going to buy Alabama's quarterback. I'm selling Ohio State's quarterback situation to Jess for nothing. Jess can take it for free. I don't want to know more.
Well, all right, Jess, are you taking that?
No, I think I don't feel confident enough in Alabama right now in Monroe to buy it. That was Middle Tennessee. It'll be a lot more telling after Texas. I mean, not that any of us, I think, are really regarding Texas as some grand defense, but it should be much better than, put up much more of a fight than anything Middle Tennessee could do. So I'm going to hold off on buying until after week 2. As for Ohio State, yeah, I'm not buying that. I think they should keep McCord in. I'd say this for any quarterback, you need more than one game. Let him get his sea legs, as it were. Keep throwing him out there, see what he can do. They should still be winning these games, until they get to Notre Dame, in which case that's like a real, other kind of contender level team. So, and if he looks bad there, then maybe you do the switch. But I'm not buying either of these guys, either of these teams' quarterback situations.
I agree. I want to see him get real competition. I think Jalen Monroe will win them enough games where you think it's not an issue until they get to like even maybe the SEC championship or maybe LSU or Texas A&M. They're going to run into one of those games where they cannot run the ball because they're going to stop the run and he's going to have to pass. And I just want to see if he could do it. I don't know if he can. For Ohio State, they need to bench McCord and go right to Devin Brown. He offers mobility and I think offers a better chance at winning this year. If they keep McCord and he keeps performing this way and they get to Notre Dame, they're going to get smacked around. So, hey, as a fan, keep him in. Yeah, that's be great for us. But as this objective viewer, I say they probably want to bench over Devin Brown. So
Ohio State's next 2 games are at home against Youngstown State and Western Kentucky.
Now, Western Kentucky they play really good offense, and I'm interested to see like if they score some points and Kyle McCord has to score points, how is that going to look? That's what I'm interested to see. This week probably won't be nothing because it's Youngstown State, but Western Kentucky has one of the better like returning quarterbacks and have a pretty good offense. So I'm interested to see what that turns out to be.
I don't think either of them are going to pose much of a challenge whatsoever. But
I didn't think Indiana was, but that was a pretty close game for a while. All right, final one. Buy or sell Billy Napier's future as Florida's head coach. Obviously, they were terrible. It was 24-11. It wasn't even that close. Utah was playing with their second and first string quarterbacks, and they made some mistakes, or it would have been a bigger blowout. Their offensive line and defensive line look like the worst in the country. Graham Mertz actually out of it didn't look too bad. And he had 333 yards, but there was just times where when he threw a bad interception or he just threw it just looked threw it way over the head or way low, and he just didn't look comfortable. But I think part of that is just the offensive line gave him no time. He was not comfortable back there at all. So with that being said, are we buying or selling Billy Napier's future as Florida's head coach? Jordan.
I'm going to sell it. Jess, you want to buy this one this time?
Probably not.
I'm going to sell it.
It's close to the beach, maybe.
And it's really going to depend on
property.
if they beat Vanderbilt. And that's week 5 or 6.
They're not going to beat Vanderbilt.
So then we're selling it. I think, like I said, Utah had second and third, 7th string quarterback playing. They're
just throwing random people out there.
That's impressive. They've got 7 quarterbacks on the roster. Let these wide receivers throw the ball. It's just Florida.
Yeah, pretty much that's what happened. Utah had huge play potential in that game. The first play was a touchdown for 70 yards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Florida also it's a hot mess. Billy Napier got a team that was a hot mess. Didn't have anyone. They're coming off a quarterback in Anthony Richardson, who prior to the combine, no one thought he would be drafted in the first round.
I did.
Not you even, Jess.
I thought he was going to be one of those guys that was like a Josh Allen type, drafted purely off of potential. Trey Lance, all these guys get drafted in the first round purely off of potential. I didn't know who was going to draft him, but I figured he was going in the first round.
But they had no one behind anyone. And then they come and get Graham Mertz, who at Wisconsin was as bad as ECU.
Oh, wow.
So I just think his future right now is up in the air. I think he's not on the hot seat because it's a little early, but his seat is heating up. The coals are burning. If he doesn't turn it around this year to at least have a 500 record, I mean, they have like an easy schedule. They play Tennessee, not next, but the week after. But they play McNeese. So if they don't win that game, I think he's going to get fired right after that game. So I'm selling Billy Napier's future with Florida right now just because of how bad they look.
He's going to fire on a tarmac for sure. What do you say, Jeff?
I don't think it's fair that he's going to get fired, but he's going to get fired. I've always been under the impression that you need to give a coach a couple years, especially if he's coming into, a crazy, terrible situation, which I think we'd all agree Billy Napier did not come into the best situation at Florida, and he's kind of stuck here with, uncertain quarterback situation. But at the end of the day, particularly when you're in the SEC, they want results. They want them fast. And he's not able to do it. He's not the man for the job for a quick turnaround here. And I think they're just going to get rid of him at some point this season.
Yep, I agree.
And for the record, ECU went in, dropped 53 in their bowl game last year. We were a very respectable team, Jordan.
They also dropped 3 points this week against Michigan.
Yeah, well, we lost like all of our skill position guys and our whole nailers, and we were playing Michigan, and we covered the spread. I said we were going to, and we covered the spread.
It's all right.
We covered the spread.
And that's all that matters. You covered the spread. That's right. And you got 3 points. You were shut out at least. So.